Welcome to another episode of Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport. Today our guest is probably just at the beginning of their journey, but schoolboy, club, university to aspiring GB international hockey goalkeeper. Welcome, James Mazarelo. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, no, very good, thank you. Good stuff. Again, thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks for hopefully inspiring the Stockport Grammar School community. We'll start off with the first question, really, is just talk a little bit about your journey from your school days to where you are today, and
Yeah, so basically at primary school, I used to play football, cricket, golf. So I didn't really get into hockey until probably when I was 11. So we went to national finals as a primary school, and obviously I was a football goalkeeper, so they just went chuck me in goal and see how you can do, had to see how you do really, and then sort of went from there. So then when I was 12, just going into secondary school, the local club was short of a goalkeeper, so then I joined. But then, so I was probably more. So I played cricket, golf, football, hockey, sort of in conjunction there up to about 15. So I played cricket and golf to a decent standard, and then probably at under 15s, that's when I kind of specialised at hockey and thought that's where I'm going to go from there. Because I'd previously sort of trialled for football, so probably 11, 12, that was my main sport, and so I trialled at Man United, but wasn't. I had a long trial there, but wasn't successful. And then sort of as I got older, I kind of progressed and transitioned mainly into hockey.
Yeah.
And then England under 16. So I did England under 16s at my correct age, then straight into England under 18s a year early, and then into the development program at 18. Yeah. And then, so now I've stayed in that development program for this is now my third year. So now I'm second year at university at Loughborough studying exercise science. So yeah, that's a brief overview of my journey so far, I suppose.
Just something that sit with there. You said you had a few setbacks there on the way, and obviously the Manchester United one and a bit with the hockey. Yeah. How did you deal with those setbacks?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those where I think it helped with the Man United being so young is that I didn't really so I loved football, and it really hit me. So obviously I had a great support network in parents and kind of stuff, and they would keep me going. But at that point I was probably still trying to play for fun, and that's what they stressed a lot. Yeah. You're playing for fun, you're enjoying it. So actually, although it was absolutely gutting, and I'm not saying it wasn't, because that's always that's the nature of setbacks. They're always there. You're always going to be gutted, because if you don't, then you probably don't care enough in the nicest possible way. Yeah. But I think it's then using that feeling of disappointment and going, I don't want to have that again. So in terms of that with a football, so then cricket, I played county cricket up to 15s, under 15s, and then I got dropped from there. So actually it was like having that feeling, I don't want to have that again, to keep going. So actually that kind of really helped in terms of probably my hockey and going through when I had tough stages of that, is I'd come through it before. And so then I knew that if I keep working as hard as possible, I've got the support network around me with parents who can help. Yeah. I'm probably going to get through it, and it will work out in the end, kind of thing.
Yeah. And is there anything specifically you can share with the pupils about, like I said, you had that setback at the football, the cricket, you could have given up. You could have thought, it's happened again. And then you got to the hockey there as well. What specific things did you go through your head, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so I think the main thing for me was trying to focus on doing everything I can, so I had no regrets. So I think that's one thing in terms of anything that you do. If your approach is you can prepare as well as you can, and you've got no regrets, then you can look back at it and go, yeah, I did everything I can. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it's tough. Those first few weeks after you get that, they're really tough, because I still remember that first net session. I've been dropped, and I was terrible, because you're still thinking like, oh, I wish you were still in it. But then you've got that. It's then, can you try and dissociate yourself from that and just work really hard, and then go again and go again? Because actually there's people who even now in the development program for hockey, is that it's all been really easy.
Yeah.
And so when they first get that first setback, they don't really know how to respond to it. So if you build those skills, if you have them, and you know, yes, if I work hard, you've got something to fall back on, and you know that you've come through it. But yeah, I think the key is just really focusing on yourself, because you can't necessarily control what the selectors are thinking.
Yeah.
But if you know how, if you're working hard, you know that you've done as much as you can, then you can't really control anything else.
Control the controllables and just do what's in your control, and have then no excuse environment for yourself. Then that's really good. On the flip side, you've had accomplishments along the way. Which one sticks out to you that you're most proud of, and why?
That's a really difficult one. So I think
I'm
gonna have to split that into probably two. So secondary school. So I was at Altrincham Grammar, which is probably not the best thing to say. But so we went to indoor national finals in our final year. So we'd been to national finals fairly frequently throughout, because we had a fairly good squad for the North. But then you obviously go to national finals, dominated by the South, and so it's quite tough. So we'd been at 16s for indoor, and we'd kind of underperformed. We hadn't had the best of luck in the competition, but also we didn't play to our potential. So we went there under 18s. We probably weren't the best team on paper, but we gelled really well. We worked really hard, so we'd get up at 7:30 in the morning before school and train on a Thursday, because we couldn't really get any other facilities at any other time. But we went down, and then we managed to come second. So we came through, we played really well. And actually to go toe to toe with some of those independent schools down south, that's a really big achievement for me, in terms of, as a team, how we were able to come together and just try and compete, which we'd never really done before. In terms of probably international stuff, so last year I went to Malaysia to play in the Sultan of Johor Cup. And so we ended up winning gold, but then also how I played in that competition. So sometimes as a goalkeeper, your team can play really well, you never touch the ball, and then you still win. But then knowing that I was really pleased with technically how I played in that tournament as well, making some big saves at big moments, and that's a really positive. That's probably one of my biggest achievements in terms of on the international scene, if that makes sense. Being really pleased with how I played in that competition and making a meaningful difference to the outcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. What was going through your head when you first put that shirt on for that international match there, the first time you did it? What was going through your head?
Probably just, I think it was 16s against the Dutch, and I think that helped, because we were never really expected to do very well. So it was like, just go out, enjoy it, and just love it, basically, because I knew I was going to be really busy, because in terms of junior age groups, 16s and 18s, the Dutch are always miles ahead of us, and then we slowly catch up. So in that respect, it kind of took the pressure off a little bit, because we were expected to kind of be battered. And then sort of within the first few minutes I was in the game, which was nice. So there wasn't really that pressure or waiting to do something. I was straight in. But yeah, I think it's just probably what did come to mind is the journey I've been on, in terms of I had the setbacks like we talked about. I'd also had really good successes, and actually you're representing your country, which is like a really proud achievement kind of thing. So it's trying to take that in, as well as enjoying the occasion. Rather, obviously you're going to have some nerves, because you're probably not human if you don't, but it's also trying to take in and enjoy the journey that you've been on to get there.
James, how would you describe what high performance is?
So probably from an outcome level, is just trying to achieve sustained success over a period of time. But I think that probably comes from how your mindset is, in terms of, are you continually looking for improvement? So you might do well, but actually, are you still looking at how could that be better? So I listened to something, I think Joe Root and Michael Vaughan it was, in terms of the cricket. So after Root had scored 200 or whatnot, he then had a phone call with Michael Vaughan and went, is there anything that I can improve? And I think that sums it up perfectly, is actually you still can play absolutely brilliantly, but the likelihood is there's probably still something that you missed and you didn't do perfectly. So I think that is a key aspect of high performers is they're constantly looking for somewhere to improve. They're never resting on what they've just achieved. Then sort of just dedication. I think that's something that Alistair Cook spoke about as well, is in order to achieve that, it's constant hard work, constant commitment. You're always going to be at training. You're always going to put the hard work in, because it's really hard. Unless you're outrageously talented, it's never going to come easy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm a big believer. Talent is overtaken by hard work in the long run. So when you're younger, you might have that talent and rely on that. But if you don't work at it, then people are just going to catch up with you and overtake you eventually.
100%. Yeah.
Role models. Have you had anyone who's influenced you on your journey so far?
Yeah, so I think I'd probably have to split that in terms of sort of the goalkeeping side and then sort of the non-goalkeeping side. So I've had 3 fantastic goalkeeper coaches over, like 3 main ones who've worked with me a lot. So I had Roger Newcombe at Bowden, who previously worked with the women's senior squad, Robbie Turner, who's done sort of the England age group squads, also another coach. And then also my goalkeeper coach at Loughborough, Ali McGregor, who's been to Olympics, World Goalkeeper of the Year. So in terms of that, I've had massive experience and also just massive help. And I wouldn't be where I am today without those 3 and how they've helped me along the journey. Yeah. But then I'd also go in terms of outside. So although they're not goalkeepers, I've still learned from them in terms of how they work on their pitch. So one of my people at my old club Bowden, so nickname Wiggle, the way he approached his training was just, that's basically what I wanted to be. So he'd always go under the radar, work really hard, and just everyone respected him for that. So he'd always work hard. But then if he wanted to say something, so he wasn't a loud character, but he set the standards quietly, go about his business. But then if he did say anything, everyone would listen. And that's exactly what I wanted to be. So I wanted to be that under the radar kind of member of the squad. But if you ever wanted to say anything, everyone would respect you and tune in. Yeah. That is the perfect way. And that's the way I want to be in kind of that environment. I'd also say, so Simon Edgerton, who's at Bowden now as well. So he did some junior and senior stuff. Yeah. For England GB, but then has also gone to Holland and done really well out there. So, and I think that just showed me as well that it's not necessarily all about the senior transition. So obviously that is an aim, but you can still make a name for yourself in hockey elsewhere. It doesn't have to be straight in that. So you may not be able to get straight into that senior program straight away, but you can still go and be successful elsewhere. It's not completely on the international scene. Yeah. And then, so actually, last one is probably when I was playing cricket. So I used to play at a club called Ashley. So we never played at a particularly high level. Yeah. But there was the wicketkeeper there taught me probably how I wanted to play sport. So you win and lose in the right way. And it's a bit of a cliche, but he'd always make sure that no matter whether we were playing, we were winning or we were losing, it would always be in the right spirit. And I think that is key, because your results are impermanent. So you might win one week, lose one week, but if you can stay level in other kind of ways and actually be respected by everyone, that's the best way to be. So whether you're up there, down there, everyone's still going to respect you and respect your opinion. And I think that's key. And that it's just a simple thing of whether you're respecting the opposition and stuff like that. I think that's just key. Yeah, you're right. For me, it's just about being a good person, isn't it? And as we touched on before, this being the best version of yourself there. So yeah, good stuff. And then, what's your future goals, James? What is the ultimate? What are you striving to do? So I'd love to be pull on that full international shirt at some point. Yeah, that's definitely a goal of mine, and hopefully go to a major competition and medal. So whether that be the Olympics, the World Cup, but yeah, that's definitely a goal of mine, to try and keep getting into that senior squad. And like I've said, in terms of Simon, if that doesn't work out, is try and just enjoy maybe going abroad and trying to make an impact in a league where it's almost full-time professional, kind of in Germany or Holland, and go, and show basically what I'm all about, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's good. And two key points there. It's
I've got out of that is dream big.
Yeah,
It's so important, and also enjoy the moment as well.
100%.
Because some people, I think, forget that they're so driven and they actually don't enjoy what they're doing at the time. So I think it's so important in there. So that comes across. Good stuff. And then just a little one, obviously, because you've been through your education and obviously balancing your education with hockey. How did you do that? Because I don't want to embarrass you, but you're a top level student and for me, an elite level athlete. So you've got both there. How have you done that?
I think it's not easy, but I think in terms of the mindset, and this is one thing I think that is key, is I probably share the same mindset for my academics as I share for my sport. So in terms of basically trying to prepare as well as possible for the exams. So whether that would be I'd be going to sport and I'd work around my sport. So if I need to go and train, I'd make sure I'd done some work before I was going to go and train and when I came back kind of thing. So it's just basically being really organized. And that is the big thing, especially when you come to somewhere like Loughborough. You've got some people who are very like-minded, say, who do take that into, who want to do well in both. And so will be structured. So they'll get up early, they'll work, then they'll go and train, they'll come back and work. And you've also got some that probably aren't as like that. And so they'll just probably focus on the sport. So I think it's definitely mindset, but it's also being organized. So if you're at an elite level performer, you probably have a mindset of you're going to be prepared as possible. You're going to work really hard. And so if you can try and transfer that into your work, then you're able to structure it. So whether that be, so I still remember, so my final year of A levels, obviously I was still doing that. I was going into that development program, which was like 2 days every 2 weeks, probably. So then I might go down on the train, but I do some work on the train. So I can still, it's that kind of thing, is you can still work, but it also gives that balance in both. So I found that I was more effective if I trained and then had to come and work, because it gave me sort of a deadline I had to finish the work by. So actually on days where I didn't have training, I was probably less productive than when I had sport to do, because I knew that's when I've got to work and I was more productive. So I think it's definitely possible. It's just getting your mindset right, like you said.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's really good. And again, a couple of key points what you've come across there is make the most of every moment. So every moment you can fit in some work or some training, or just make the most of that. So no, that's really good stuff. What are James Mazzarelo's 3 non-negotiable behaviours you'd expect of yourself and anybody else you'd come into contact with?
Yeah, so I think probably my first one would be dedication. So I think you've got to be putting in the effort, whether that be 100% effort. So whether that be with your work, whether that be with your sport, whether that be with your fitness, like everything you do, you've got to be 100% committed. There's no, or you'd rather go and do something else. It's that's what you've got to do, kind of thing. I also think the mindset of continued improvement is really key. So if you want to keep going, you're never going to be perfect. So you've got to be analyzing. Although you can enjoy the achievement, which is great, at some point you've got to look, actually, did I make a mistake? Could I have improved? Because you're never going to have a completely flawless game, in my opinion. And then resilience, I think, is key. So it's never going to be a perfect journey from your start to where you're dreaming. It never is. Although in an ideal world, it would be. And I think it's making sure that you're able to bounce back after that. But it's not necessarily bouncing back. It's bouncing back, but being better. So, and I think that is key. If you can learn from it and then get better from that setback, you're going to be in a better place with other people who've not had that, until you get to a high pressure situation and they fail and they don't know how to deal with it. So I definitely think that is key. And whether that's from your own personal, how you deal with that, or you've got a support network to help you with that, I think that's key.
No, good stuff. Brilliant. And then, James, if you could go back to being a 12-year-old boy, maybe here at Stockport Grammar School, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know
now? Firstly, I'd say take every opportunity that you can, because I think if we hadn't entered that national finals, primary school, I'd never been a hockey goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So I'd never be where I am today if I didn't take the opportunity. So I think that is key, is just take everything that you can. It might not work out and you go, okay, that's fine. That's not for me. But then you never know that actually that could be the one thing that you're absolutely brilliant at. And yeah, you can go from there. I think also is just commit to everything. So whether that be 100% effort in, I don't know, your work, your thing, your washing up, always commit 100% to everything, because you can then always learn, you're always improving, like you then have no regrets. And I think that is key. Whereas if you can look back and go 20 years time and go, I did everything, that's absolutely fine. And I think if I was to flip that to me now, is that if I don't make my goal of being a senior international athlete, I can actually look back and go, I did absolutely everything. Yeah. I don't want to be that person in 10 years time and go, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd tried to do that. Yeah. There'd be my two key pieces of advice, I think.
No, brilliant, James. That's awesome. And I have no doubt with your mentality, your mindset, in 10 years' time, we might be doing this interview again and you've got 2 gold medals around your neck.
Oh, fingers crossed. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.